This episode of the WP Builds podcast is brought to you by GoDaddy Pro, the home of managed WordPress hosting that includes free domain, SSL, and 24/7 support. Bundle that with the Hub by GoDaddy Pro to unlock more free benefits to manage multiple sites in one place, invoice clients, and get 30% off new purchases. Find out more at go.me/WP Builds. And by Bluehost. Redefine your web hosting experience with Bluehost Cloud. Managed WordPress hosting that comes with lightning-fast websites, 100% network uptime, and 24/7 priority support. With Bluehost Cloud, the possibilities are out of this world. Experience it today at bluehost.com/cloud. And by Omnisend. Do you sell your stuff online? Then meet Omnisend. Yes, that Omnisend. The email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 for every dollar spent. The one that's so good, it's almost boring. Hate the excitement of roller coaster sales? Prefer a steady line going up? Try Omnisend today at omnisend.com. Hello there and welcome to this. This is the 4th episode of the Accessibility Show with Joe Dolson. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here again, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you. So if you haven't seen these before, it might be kind of interesting to flick back. We have an archive of accessibility shows. Perhaps later in the show, I will announce where those are, but you can go through the menus or search for Joe's name on the WP Builds website, wpbuilds.com, and hopefully you'll find the accessibility shows. Obviously, episodes 1, 2, 3 are published. This is the 4th one. And the endeavor here is to go through a few websites and tease out one, maybe two, but the idea is to sort of stick to one topic and really dive deeply into that. So we're not trying to do the panacea for all accessibility things here. This is just, here's a bunch of things all constrained around the same topic. And today it's going to be all about newsletter signups. Before we get into that, though, Joe, firstly, do you want to give us your quick potted bio? Tell us who you are, in case this is for the first time somebody's watching.
Well, first, I'm going to make a quick correction.
Oh.
You said that this one was going to be about newsletter signups. That was last
I apologize.
episode.
You're quite right.
This one is going to be about cookie banners.
And it's literally written there in front of me. But above it is the words newsletter signups, and I've gone and read that instead, and I apologize.
Yep. Yeah, it's easy to do. But yeah, so I'm Joe Dolson. I'm an accessibility consultant and developer. I'm a WordPress core committer and kind of de facto person who works on accessibility in WordPress core, along with several other people who contribute to that. I've been doing that for a very long time, and I'm really happy to be able to talk about accessibility with you on this show.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful that we get the opportunity to do this. Honestly, it's an area that I need schooling in, so this is the perfect opportunity to do that. I notice when I drop into Slack, one of the things that I see you doing over there is things called bug scrubs. What's that for a newbie WordPress user? What's going on over there in the WordPress Slack?
Well, so I run a bug scrub once a week that is focused on looking at accessibility issues. And basically what that is it's just going through all of the things that are currently open and assessing where they are, where they should go next, and trying to get any feedback on them that's currently necessary. And that works differently throughout the release process. So right now, we're in the alpha phase of the release process for WordPress 6.8. And that means basically anything goes. We can work on enhancements, new features, major tasks. There's a lot of room. So right now, we're focused on the enhancements. Anything that's considered an improvement to WordPress that's just going beyond a minor bug fix. Later on, once we get into like the beta phase, we really focus on bugs. And then once we're into the release candidate, we actually start to move on towards the next release, towards 6.9. During the release candidate phase, we'll touch base on anything that pops up as a consequence of a change we've made and try and fix it. but mostly we're hoping that the release candidate is quiet and we don't have to worry about it very much. So then in that early phase, preparing for 6.9, we're actually going through everything that's open and being like, okay, does anybody want to work on this? Does this seem like a good candidate for the amount of time we have available as something we might look at? And so for each individual bug, that's kind of an assessment of who is here, who has the time, who has the interest. Uh, is this something that works well with other things we're working on? Like right now, there's a whole bunch of stuff around title attributes. And that's just because we're trying to finish up a big project to eliminate title attributes in WordPress core. We got almost all of them done several years ago, but there's always some lingering ones. And now we're just like, okay, we need to finish this and actually be done.
We have this expression in the UK. There's this long bridge called the fourth bridge, and the idea is that somebody paints it, a team of people paint it, and by the time they get to finishing the painting, they have to go right back, and then the next day they start again. Takes like a whole year, and they just keep doing it. They never stop. It's a bit like that with accessibility, it would seem.
Yep.
Is there a need for people to join that? I mean, do you have a team that kind of relentlessly works on that? Are there people who you kind of have come to rely on, or would you welcome some more bodies in that channel?
There's absolutely a team of people who are working on that regularly. But yeah, it's always good to have people coming in and looking at things and working on things. I mean, one of the things that can be the most difficult is actually getting early feedback. I mean, I'm sure you've seen this in the WordPress world. There's routinely some big change releases, and suddenly there's this chorus of people saying, "Oh my God, I didn't know that was coming."
Right.
Like, well, there is a way to find these things out, and that's to, install the development versions and work with them and explore with them so that you are always using something that's current. Personally, like as a plugin developer, I do all of my development in the alpha,
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. So you're
because
really keeping ahead. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to find out as soon as possible what is actually changing and whether it impacts me.
Hmm.
And there's no guarantee that's going to catch everything. I mean, things are complicated. But I strongly recommend having that alpha installed as early as possible if you're working in development in WordPress. You want to know what's going on.
I will try to put the link to the Slack channel for that into the show notes. So if you search for this, hopefully you'll find episode 4. And yeah, hopefully the link for that channel will be made available there. What we normally do is we share Joe's screen, and Joe just highlights some of the bits and pieces that he's been thinking about for this particular episode. It is cookie banners. I'm sorry about that. And that's what we normally do. However, we're just going to derail the conversation for a few minutes because I said to Joe a little while ago, it's very nice having you on, and I'd like to scratch your back a little bit because you provide so much value back to us. So I said, have you got a thing you're working on? And he has got a thing he's been working on for many years, it turns out. So this is XPoster. So we'll just do this for a few minutes. Tell us about XPoster, and I'll pop your screen up if that's going to help.
Sure. So XPoster is a plugin I wrote. It's the first plugin I wrote. I wrote it in 2008, and I've been maintaining it now for over 16 years, which is a little bit shocking. But it started its life as something called WP to Twitter, and got to be rebranded when Twitter stopped being Twitter. And I did choose X, but that's not because I wanted it to be branded as X.com. It's because I wanted something more generic and general. And so X in this case stands for cross. It's a cross posting plugin, which can share your content from WordPress to a variety of other services. And I just recently added Blue Sky, which made it 3 services. So it's now doing X, Mastodon, and Blue Sky. And in the last month, I've been doing a pretty major rewrite to better support what it needs to be able to do in order to actually post to multiple services. Because as something that once did just one service, it kind of didn't matter what order things happened in. Determining what length the status update needed to be could happen at any point before it was sent to the service, because there was only one service.
Yeah.
Well, now we've
Yeah.
got 3 different services. They all have different character lengths. And so I needed to make some different plans and reorder things so that you could customize that for each one. And so basically it exists as a sidebar in your post editor, and you can enable or disable each service on the fly as you need, write a custom status update, and use a templating from various elements of your of the information about the post or about your site.
Oh, so they're like little short codes. So if you click, for
Yep.
example, on, oh, I don't know, let's go for title, I'm guessing. Yeah, the second one is title.
I mean,
It will suck in the title of the post as
and
the
title is
post.
currently in there already, so that
Yep.
actually takes it out. But
Yep.
yeah, that's exactly what it does.
Oh, no.
Hash title hash just replaces with the title of the current post. And you can set up your default template in the settings. So, if you have something you're always going to use, that's great. But then you can customize it easily here. And then additionally, you can customize it for each service. So now if you need something for Blue Sky that's going to be a little bit different, you want to reference a user, but you're referencing them by their Blue Sky handle, not their Twitter handle, you can do that here. And then there's a whole bunch of other rules that are part of the premium plugin add-on XPoster Pro to delay your posting. So, maybe you're like, I want to proof this live before it actually gets posted to social media. So delay that 10 minutes. I want it to be reposted again tomorrow. So set a delay to repost it 27 hours later. You might want to customize the text of those posts or set a specific date and time that it's going to be reposted.
Gosh.
Customize the image that goes along with it. Choose the type of summary card that goes with it. There's a lot of options here. And so it's just a thing that you can use to kind of streamline posting to all these different services.
I had no idea you had this as a thing. So
Yeah.
XPoster. So it's literally all as one word. It's the letter X with the word poster following it, but there's no space. XPoster. That's the free version. But Joe's just demonstrated some of the bits and pieces that you can get as a pro version as well. So that's, as you'd imagine, XPoster Pro. And you set all the different settings inside of a whole settings page. So you do that separately. And then it looks like you can set up, like you said, X, Mastodon, Blue Sky, add a URL shortener. And you were saying to me before we hit record, because it's bound to your website and your website only, it's using up your API quota, which equates to something like, let's say, about 8 tweets a day, something like that.
Yeah, with X.com, the API limits on the free account are pretty restrictive. So you get a total of 17 requests a day, but it's enough to make it at least marginally useful as X is.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I think one of the reasons for being excited about this again is having added Blue Sky and having a service it connects to that I actually care about.
Yeah.
Because I was on the verge of letting this just die a horrible death because I was like, X, who cares? I don't want it to use anything that goes to X. I don't feel comfortable just removing it because the fact is there's still like 20,000 installations of this that are probably almost all still using X because that's all it did for 16 years. But, I don't have any passion for X. I don't want people to be using X.
But you're more into Blue Sky and things now, are you?
Elon Musk has made it plenty difficult to make any use of anything like this with X. So, I don't need to make it harder.
Yeah. But you've got Mastodon, which seems to have had a little bit of a hiatus in popularity. I mean, it's still popular, but it's not, I don't think, had the clip that it was. And it seems
it's got some real value in certain niches.
Yeah.
But,
it hasn't. But Blue Sky is gaining in momentum day by day, it would seem. I think the last time I looked, it was 30 million accounts and counting. Imagine it's risen quite a lot beyond there. And the promise really is that you don't get the algorithmic feed and you don't get the ads. And so it's a bit quieter. Will it remain quiet? Who knows? But for now, it's quite nice. XPoster and XPoster Pro. Brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's fabulous.
For forcing me to share that.
Yeah, I have to say I did twist Joe's arm there. He wasn't that willing to do it, but I'm glad that you did. And go on. throw Joe a bone. Go and have a look at that and see what you make of it. Okay, so like I said, we're going to not be doing newsletter signups. We're going to do cookie banners. And Joe does his homework, let's put it that way. Not only does he know a lot, but for this show in particular, he prepares, and I can see a bunch of show notes with all the different bits and pieces that we're going to be talking about. Several websites to look at. Going to start with one called fabricagroup.fr. And for those of you looking on a screen, then we can see it now. There's the website on the left and the inspector on the right. And cookie banners, the bane of everybody's life, I would say.
So before I talk about the cookie banners, I do want to briefly talk about newsletter sign-up forms. Because usually the way we do this show is we'll start off by giving an example that's a good example of whatever we panned in the previous show.
Yes.
But the reality is I looked at about 25 sites and 20 of them with newsletter signups, and I didn't find a good example. So I don't have a good example from the WordPress showcase of a newsletter sign-up form to show you.
Okay.
That, I think, in itself, somewhat of a condemnation of the way newsletter signups work.
Yeah.
There were a couple that were okay, Mozilla and Qualtrics, but neither of them actually met standards. And I was like, well, I guess I don't want to tout anything as good if I can't find something that's good.
So we were looking at that in the last episode, these newsletter signups, and the showcase, the WordPress showcase, is a website that you can go to, which literally has a bunch of websites that are built on WordPress that in some way exemplify, well, I think it's fair to say, good design. As we have discovered on previous episodes, it doesn't necessarily encompass accessibility, good accessibility, but good design. You know,
I
they look like
qualify that slightly to what it.
Thank you.
What it showcases is out of the box thinking.
Okay, that'll sum it up much better.
Some
I
of
like
which
that.
is good design.
Yeah, thank you. That's much better. So interesting, quirky, out of the box thinking, that kind of thing. Okay, well there you go. That we were hoping to see a good newsletter one, but we're not going to have one. So
not today.
Should we go for this one then? Cookie banners.
Let's dive in.
Yeah, we can see you on there.
So here we are. We've got our cookie banner. So the first thing I want to observe is really, what is the location of this cookie banner? Now, visually, obviously, we see it down there in the bottom right corner. So we're going to just have to navigate to this. I noticed that the key tracker falls behind that. So that's going to make this a little bit less informative for you, but
it's okay. I see what you mean. The Chrome extension, which is enabling us to see what you're doing, is behind the cookie banner. That's
right.
Curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so be it.
Yeah.
Now, the location of the cookie banner in the DOM, so how you're actually going to get to it, it shows up right at the top of the page. So this div that is the container for it is right appended below the body, not in the same place as it appears visually. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing entirely. It is good that the cookie banner appears very, very early in the tab sequence. That is a desirable thing, because really, if you have to agree to something
right
in order to use the site, you should be presented with that immediately. But it can be a little off-putting for somebody who is sighted but using a keyboard because they don't necessarily land where they expected to. Now, I will also note that, this has a very clear and obvious OK button, but the change your preferences button, that's a lot harder to see. This gray here gives it a contrast ratio of 2.7 to 1, which is well below contrast guidelines.
Would you say that's deliberate, though, in this case?
Oh, yes, that's absolutely deliberate.
Okay.
They want you to just agree. They don't actually want you to make changes. So this is not surprising. It's just still an accessibility violation. So now I'm going to just open up this panel. And one good thing here is the focus did move directly into the preferences modal, and you can see clearly that the close button is focused, which is great. That gives you a good way of kind of moving on from where you are. So I appreciate that. Now, the next tab did move me one space to the left to an invisible thing that we can't see.
I can't see that. I can see there's a rectangle, but
Yep.
nothing. Yeah. Okay.
So that obviously not so great. Now, I will tell you what that is. That is a language selector.
Oh, gosh.
So I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know whether this is a design error or they just intentionally were like, oh, we don't want people to see that. But it's
Just
still
make it
there.
all the
You can
same
get
color
to
as the
it.
background. Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
a bit weird,
Yeah.
definitely an accessibility failure. And then we get into the selecting the different types of cookies. Now you'll see that I've kind of lost focus. There is a focus state there, but it is so faint, so hard to see that it's a bit irrelevant. So I'm currently focused on votre confidentiality,
Okay.
but you can't really tell. Now this this is set up as a tab panel. So now I need to use arrow keys to navigate it. So when I'm on one that isn't selected, it's moving.
Got it.
Now, what you may also notice, which is a little strange, is that the background of the site is moving at the same time as I navigate tabbing.
By the same amount as well. Interesting. Yeah.
That is some kind of a bug that really should be dealt with because there shouldn't be this kind of parallax motion effect by having two different things moving at the same time. That is disconcerting. It's not an enormous problem, but it is disconcerting. Now I need to actually select one of these, and now we get to one of the really fun parts, which is the custom checkbox. Now,
Wait, what? A custom checkbox. Okay. That's
yes,
novel.
and that is going to be one of the fun things through this entire sequence because we have lots of different custom checkboxes. So first thing I can tell you is that you can't see focus on this. There is no focus state. You cannot see a visible focus on the checkbox. So you don't know that you've gotten to it. Now, additionally, there's some more strange stuff going on here. You can't really distinguish between the active and inactive states visually because the only change is this subtle color change from the light green to white. That is definitely insufficient for a color change to be able to distinguish between these two modes. It does change this label. This text is changing. So because of that, you will be able to tell what the text says. However, the way this is actually set up, this label is labeling the checkbox.
Okay.
So the checkbox has a label that sometimes says active and sometimes says inactive. Now, what does it mean if you have an unchecked checkbox that is inactive?
Okay. Yeah.
Like, just
Yeah.
think through the logic
Yeah.
here, and does this actually make any sense?
No, not a
It
lot.
technically means that both states, from a purely semantic
Yeah.
standpoint, are saying the same thing,
They're saying the exact same thing.
right?
Okay. All right.
So that is a potential point of confusion in which somebody can really struggle to figure out what they've actually done. Now, the last thing regarding this checkbox is it is using a setting called appearance none. Right here, you can see that
Yeah.
in the
Got it. Yeah.
inspector. Now, what appearance none actually does is in some browser and assistive technology combinations, it strips out the semantics of the control.
Oh.
So for some devices, this is not a checkbox. It is now essentially a div. It is a
Okay.
checkbox in name only, but the semantics have all been removed, so it's a div. And what it will report to when you get to it in a screen reader is just checked. That's all it says. The label doesn't mean anything anymore because the label isn't associated with this div. You can't make that association. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't have a state. So there's a lot of problems in this checkbox.
No kidding. Gosh, that's massive. Yeah.
Now, one other thing that I just have to mention, because when I was doing some screen reader checking on this, I noticed it very quickly, is that this site is in French.
Well, yeah.
But
Oh, look at that.
the site says that it's in English.
English. I saw that. Yeah.
And it is pronounced on my device in English.
Gosh. Okay.
Which, let me just say, that sounds an awful lot like somebody with an absolutely atrocious French accent. Now, that may be very authentic as an
Yeah.
English-speaking person,
Yeah.
but it's not very helpful.
No. So the language declaration there is just simply incorrect. It's
Yeah,
been
it's just
labeled as,
wrong.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's not just the cookie interactions. That's going to cover everything.
All the site. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is very frustrating.
Okay.
And then we close it and our focus is lost.
Oh, where did you end up? You ended up back in the,
I think I ended up just in the Chrome, so I might have
yeah.
had like the beginning of the browser.
Okay. Right.
But the point is that what it should have done is dropped you back on changer mes préférences, because that is actually what you're attempting to do.
Oh.
So that's the first example. Now, this is using a service called Free Privacy Policy from freeprivacypolicy.com. I can't speak to what kinds of options are available. I know a lot of these cookie modals offer a lot of preferences in how you can set them up, and some of those can impact accessibility. But this experience, not so great.
Kind of surprising that if that is the business model of that business, that there would be more or less anything in there that was a problem, because that's what
Well,
they do. You know, they've got this one finite product catalog, and yet quite a bit in there.
you'd like to believe that. I
Okay.
would certainly like to believe that organizations who are building applications that are legally required within a community, such as consenting to cookies, would make sure that everybody who used their product was in fact able to do that. But that is not in fact the case.
Maybe in June this year, when the European Accessibility Act comes around, we'll have more legal teeth.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
There's a lot to be done.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So that was fabricagroup.fr, and now we're moving on to a different website. This is called opus-1.ch, so Opus 1. Oh, look at that. It's a nice looking website, but
Sounds very interesting.
hmm.
Now, I'm going to start this off with a content warning, which is to say, if you decide to go and look at this website and you have aversions or issues with animations, don't open the menu.
Okay.
I am going to open the menu so that people can see that, but I want to warn you so that if this is a problem, you can just close your eyes. It'll only last about 2 seconds.
Caveat emptor. Here we go. Yep.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, wow. Gosh, yeah. That was a lot.
All right, it's over. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
I mean,
that
and I
was,
can see that as it's a creative thing. It's very interesting. It does not respect, prefers reduced motion. And boy, that's a lot of motion.
that is a lot of motion. So what we saw there, I can probably describe it, is a bunch of
Yeah.
concentric, colorful circles increasingly growing, almost like you were shooting down a tunnel or something. But it took over the entire UI. There was no bit of it which wasn't involved in animating in color at speed. That's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. I felt like I just had to raise that
Yeah.
because it was intense.
Yeah. You can imagine, though, the developer of that must have been so chuffed to bits when they pulled it off from a technical point of view, thinking,
Oh,
"Look
I'm
at this
sure.
stuff." But
Yeah.
then, you know,
And the thing is,
respecting the respect for the limited motion is should be a thing there, I think.
it should be. Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things that it is in fact relatively trivial to implement.
Hmm.
It's a one-liner in JavaScript or a couple lines in CSS. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just not that much.
Okay.
All right, but back to our topic, which is in fact cookies.
There it is.
So first of all, here we've got the usual cookie pop-up. Now this has some very obvious color contrast problems. Except all is in this white on a light green. It is, I mean, I have pretty good eyes, and I will say that I find that a bit of a struggle to read. Now, green is a signaler.
Oh,
In
it's so
many contexts, it indicates acceptance,
deceptive.
go,
Yeah.
but I don't think that
So
doesn't.
basically what they're saying is accept all is green. It's like, yeah, just get on with it. It's
Yeah,
green.
just
Why
move
not?
on.
Yeah.
So, that's not great. So let's go back to, well, obviously we have to personalize these. And once again, we have moved to the modal. So that's great.
Yep.
But one thing I'll note about this modal is that it is not actually a modal. It doesn't
Okay.
have any of the semantics that are part of being a modal. The focus moves to the container, the entire wrapping container, and it just starts reading all of the content of the modal.
Oh, wow.
Whereas if it was a
Okay.
proper modal, it would have a name, and that's what would be announced. You'd actually move the focus to the close button, but it would still announce the name because it was going inside a modal. So that's not great. It works. You can navigate around it and make it happen, but it's not correct, and it's not the best possible thing. The focus states are okay, but if you'll note what I'm focused on right now, there are clearly some contrast problems.
What is
This
that? It's purple
the
on
word
black.
is
Yeah.
affiché bleu, so read more
Yep.
essentially, but it's purple on black. And this focus state is basically just browser default, which is blue. And this blue on black doesn't have great contrast either. So
No.
it's present, it's okay. It could obviously be better. Now, at this point, I was starting to work on this with a screen reader, at which point I noticed that this site is also in French, but it was marked up in English at the time I
Okay.
was looking at it.
Okay.
Now, this is kind of interesting. This is clearly reversed because now what I'm looking at is, so this content is in French, but the outside stuff is
Is in English.
well, no, it's mixed. So present
Oh, yeah.
French,
Yeah.
but this stuff down here is in English. So menu, a lot of this is ambiguous stuff that really could be in multiple languages. So it's a little strange because I can see now it's in French, but when I was
French. Yeah.
inspecting it with the screen reader, it was in English. And so I don't know what's going on there, but it's a bit of a mess. All right, so let's look at this custom checkbox because that is the exciting thing here. Now, this one, you can focus it.
Yep.
So it's an actual object on the page. You can see that focus if you have good enough eyes to see that blue
Yeah.
on black focus state. But that's not to say that it's great. First of all, it does have issues with being color only to distinguish between the two states. The contrast is better because now the selected state is this dark blue on white instead of this light green. So that is much more visible. But this is another one that does the same thing with changing the label as it changes the state.
I was just
So
thinking that. Yeah.
in its inactive state, it says that it is
To activate, in a sense. It's like,
right. So one of the states says it's activate this, the other one says inactive.
right.
And so you've got this constant confusion of how that checkbox actually relates to the label. This is
Do
one
you
of the
know what?
reasons why changing labels is not what you should ever do with a checkbox. A
It,
checkbox is a label, and then it gets changed so that the state of that checkbox reflects what is actually happening with the checkbox.
I get caught out of this, and obviously I can see everything that's going on, but I get caught out with this on a daily basis where I am absolutely bamboozled by the language. And I always feel it would be so much easier if it said something along the lines of, I don't know, so this is something called functional. So functional is now deactivated or
Right.
is now activated. Just some
Yeah.
English or in this case French definition in a easy to parse way, because this happens to me all the time, and I'm it literally every day, and I don't know what I'm agreeing to.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. And one thing I will note here is all of these sections are inside an accordion.
Okay.
That accordion actually does work. It has RE expanded
Yeah, true, false.
attributes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
got buttons. That's actually pretty good. Um, though uh, it is a little weird that there is content that is part of the accordion that is visible when the accordion is closed,
Yeah, that is unusual, isn't it?
which
Yeah.
makes it a little confusing to figure out exactly what you're doing. Because actually, what you're doing is it's more of a read more kind of
Right. Yeah.
disclosure thing.
Yeah.
You've got content here because really, usually when you reach an accordion control, navigating as a screen reader, you get to this, it says functional, you expect that there is no additional content. I don't think that would have any profound impact on the user because if they decide, okay, I'm going to open it so I can read the content, that same content is there. They can get
Mm,
it either way. Um, it's just going to be a little bit confusing if they're just reading through the page and they get to this functional and then they figure, okay, I'll get to the next control. Oh, wait, this is content. Oh, maybe
yeah.
this is actually open and the attributes are wrong.
Yeah.
So again, usable, a little strange. And so this one is powered by a company called Cookie Yes, which is cookieyes.com. This is on the whole better than the previous one, but still has some fairly notable problems.
Okay. Okay, so that was Opus 1, and obviously we're kind of looking as well at whatever Cookie Yes does. So the next one is caviar.tv. Now, this got me kind of interested. I wondered if look, look at that ASCII stuff. Oh, gosh, here we go. Um,
It's a lot of
Caviar.
animation, kind of
Okay.
annoying.
Yeah, lots of
Um,
animation.
Again, not stoppable, but at least it's more slow moving. And yeah, they've got this big, the company that made this has this big ASCII art at the top of the
What even is
HTML
that?
body.
Can't make sense.
I don't know.
I don't
I,
know.
I I think it probably only makes sense at specific sizes, and
Yeah,
this is
okay,
not
okay.
one of them.
If you were wider, it might line up.
Um,
Got it.
right. So I don't know. So this one is a bit different because this isn't really properly speaking cookie acceptance. Because of course this is an American site and we don't have that cookie law, but there are still privacy concerns. And so this is basically just saying that they comply with the GDPR and uh, you can accept it. You can't customize anything. You just can accept it, or you can email them with your request for information. But it's interesting because this is custom and it's unique, and it's really, really low contrast and incredibly tiny.
Yeah.
I mean, it is the first thing focusable on the page, so it's relatively easy to find it. Its visible placement matches its location in the document object model. Um, but if you want to actually read what this says, you need to be able to see things that are very small and very low contrast.
Mm.
Only thing, again, that is plainly visible is I accept. And then we've
Yeah.
got this fun
Yeah.
email link. Want to see what the email link does?
Oh, go on. Oh, no. Is it going to open up your email client with
Nope.
a No,
I'm clicking on it.
it does nothing.
It does absolutely nothing. It is just a hashtag.
It literally links deliberately
Literally
to
does
nothing.
not link to anything. There is no
Okay.
email here. It does nothing. No event attached to that appears to be broken. Whatever it is, it's just not there.
Somebody forgot to clean that up, didn't they? It was like, we'll
Yep.
come back to that. We'll
Which
add an
tells
email
you a
address.
lot about just how much they actually care about your
Yeah.
privacy.
Okay. Well, yeah.
So I don't have a lot to say about this one. I just wanted to call that out because this is an example of where things maybe are lying in places that are not currently covered by those jurisdictions and maybe aren't
Yeah.
having to pay as much attention. They'll do even less and do it even worse.
Yeah. It's interesting. At the topic, does it say in the GDP?
It says we comply with the GDPR and any data held by us is held on the following basis provided in the GDP.
What's the GDP, General Data Protection?
Yeah, I feel like that's we don't really know what we're talking
Is
about.
that a typo? Should it have an R at the end? Anyway, that's a
Maybe as a
typo.
typo.
Yeah.
I mean, there clearly are typos here.
Yeah.
You know,
GDP in the UK stands for something completely different. It stands for gross domestic product.
yeah, that's what it stands for here too.
Oh, okay. So
I'm
bamboozled by that.
reasonably confident that that is not what
It's not what it is. Yeah, it's the entire product of the nation, right there.
Right.
Okay. So that's very. So it's not cookie consent, but it's something
Right.
adjacent to it.
It's certainly
Okay.
related to it.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
privacy document. It's
Oh,
not
it's
great.
interesting. As you scrolled, I got more of
Oh,
the
yeah.
impression it
Folks,
felt like it was part of the navigation menu almost at the top, like the
yeah,
bar
well,
at the
it
top.
aligns with it when you're
Yeah.
there. And presumably you have to accept it in order to be able to see the navigation,
There you do.
which
You do.
is done very strangely.
Okay. Yeah, that is interesting. Okay, so there we go. That was caviar.tv. No doubt a very expensive domain, I'm sure. However, we're going to move on. This is the fourth of four. So this is the last one. This is Museo. I actually have no idea how to pronounce this.
I don't know how to pronounce this either.
Let's go for Museo Thyssen. I don't know. It sounds like a museum of somewhere called Thyssen, and I have no idea where that is. But let's find out when it finally loads. Ooh.
It takes a while to load.
It does take a while to
Which
load.
I do find one of the most humorous things is if you're looking at the inspector as it loads, it briefly shows you the
I saw that.
flash from WP Rocket.
I saw that. I wondered if I'd seen that. Yeah.
Set up by WP Rocket, and you're like, I mean, it may be sped up. I don't want to know what it would be like without that. And,
Yeah. Yeah, you got that
because
brief moment.
I'm waiting quite a while.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so
there it is.
One thing you'll notice is that this is a modal. It is appropriately labeled. It is a proper modal, and it appears at the top of the page so that your navigation location matches what you see. So that is a nice thing. So it's got some advantages. Now, this focus state, you know, I'm navigating. You can sort of see that there's a slight color change.
Oh, I
Here I'm
didn't
on
see that at all.
and it's gone to a very slightly lighter gray.
Oh yeah,
It's very slightly lighter green.
Yeah.
So that is not a good focus state. That is extremely bad. You can just barely tell anything's happening. So let's go ahead and go to configure, which is again clearly the one that they're saying, oh, you don't really want to do this.
No, because it's got no back. It's not a button. It doesn't look like a button.
No.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, here we are. So inside the configuration panel, there is no visible focus. Nothing is focusable. You can't tell where you are.
Oh no!
So that's just gone down the road already. There's a logo here in this space. It's tiny, barely readable by sight. It has the accessible name, which is Logotipo de la Empresa. In Spanish, that means basically company logo, which is a fancy way of saying
we didn't do a logo. We forgot the logo. Okay. Yeah.
So this also uses a custom mouse cursor, which is really frustrating because what that really does is it masks your actual point of interaction.
Yeah. Where is it exactly?
Because the reason a pointer is shaped like a pointer is that the tip of the pointer is your actual point of interaction.
Yeah.
Where is it with this circle?
I'm guessing it's in the middle, but the middle is going to be obfuscated by the color black, which has no opacity. So yeah,
that's just really irritating.
Well, trying to be fun.
Now let's go ahead and try and click on some things.
Okay. No, nothing happens.
Nope, nothing at all happens when you try and click on things. Because this site has a screen curtain in place.
Oh my goodness.
I don't remember which one it is. I think it might be this one. I don't remember. No, it's not that one. At any rate, this screen curtain is covering everything. So
is it the background that's gone to the gray?
yes,
Is it that?
but there's actually in front of
But it's in
that, there's a
front.
fully transparent one. This is it. It's div ID equals curtain.
It's called, well, that's helpful at least.
And that is actually covering everything, including the modal. So you literally cannot interact with their cookie panel at all using a mouse. You can interact with it using a screen reader. Now, you also you're going to be very frustrated if you're using a keyboard, but you're sighted because there's no focus state. If you're using a screen reader, however, you are able to navigate through everything normally because the screen reader is announcing where you are instead of being dependent on that focus state. However, these custom checkboxes, I'm not going to try and inspect them because that's really labor intensive because I have to get rid of the curtain first and blah, blah, blah. However, these checkboxes, they're another custom one. They have a label attribute. That label attribute uses display none. So they actually have no accessible name. So none of these checkboxes, while the screen reader can get to them and interact with them, they cannot find out what they actually are labeled and what they're actually doing.
It's like a study in obfuscation, isn't it? A study.
It is, yeah.
Like sleight of hand the whole time.
I will tell you, when prepping for this, one of the most interesting moments was this kind of realization when I was just like, okay, let's just see what happens. Wait, what's going on?
Yeah, that is profound.
Why can't I click on anything?
That made it in the show right away.
It's like, well, this is definitely going in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's, to me, what that really tells me is a total lack of testing of this.
I mean,
because
nobody checked that one time, not once.
Because mouse interaction is generally the default.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if there's something that works, it is the mouse interaction.
That's shockingly
so
bad.
Anyway, that was exciting. And so that is definitely not the fault of Cookie Pro.
No.
Which is the service in use here. It's a product from onetrust.com. That is the fault 100% of this website.
Which has put this curtain over the entire viewport so that everything grayed out a bit.
Yep. So your only options are you can either reject or accept all of the cookies. You cannot customize them without going to really quite an extreme level of extra work.
It does feel, some part of me feels, I wonder if that's deliberate,
I don't know. I mean, it feels accidental to me. It feels like something that somebody did and just screwed up how they were doing things.
Wow.
Without intending to. But it does tell you that there's an insufficient amount of testing going on.
Yeah, no testing at all, in fact, in that particular case.
And that's what I got for today.
Well, that was absolutely thrilling. No kidding. There's an absolute boatload going on there. So just to recap, if you want those URLs very quickly, I'll try to say them. Fabricagroup.fr, opus-1.ch, and we had caviar.tv, and that was /Los-Angeles, like the city. And then the one that we just looked at,
that one's long.
Yeah, go to wpbuilds.com, search for this because it's a long one. And you'll be able to see it, Museo Thyssen or something like that. And of course, don't forget, Joe has been busy working not just on accessibility and doing all the bug scrubs and things like that. He's also been working on his XPoster plugin, XPoster and XPoster Pro. If you fancy putting your bits and pieces onto the social network of your choice, be it X, Mastodon, or Blue Sky, you can do that with his plugin, which is really nice. So, Joe, we'll be back at some point soon. We'll have episode 5, and hopefully we'll find a good newsletter sign up by that point. And a cookie banner which does everything right and is very clear and easy to understand.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, I don't think you'll find one. Good luck with that. Joe, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.